Hey everyone, this is Scirocco, and this is my weekly 4 summary. So to start off with, we'll go into the project 12, which is the knock lock. This is the project that Jason and I decided to present, and we'll present that on Wednesday. And I don't want to give everything away, but I'll just zoom in on this breadboard. And a lot of what we learned this week was just how the piezo worked and how it received input and output. Essentially what it does is it receives frequencies depending on whatever sound you make, and then it transfers that to the Arduino as output, and depending on that output, some of these lights will flash and will turn the servo. And again, I don't want to give away the whole project, but again, this is just the schematics that we built using the fritzing software, and as you can see, it resembles pretty closely to the book right here. And I'll go into the actual schematic that we also created. So not only could we build the circuit off of the breadboard diagram, but we could also build it off the schematic. As you can see right here, we just did a replica using the fritzing software.
National curriculum in 14 years is coming into effect this week, with one of the most interesting changes being in the subject of computing. Children from the age of 5 to 6
for now. And again, going back to this right here, this is just our schematic, and again, don't want to give anything away too much, but this is just a sneak peek what you'll see on Wednesday. So now the next thing we learned about was the electric fields, and what we did for homework was 21, 22, and 23, and what we should have done at least. And when I looked at page 21, the calculations were simple. I'll see if I can scroll to page 8 where it had the formulas for these, and let me see if I can again scroll up again. These are easy calculations considering we've gone through Calc 1, 2, and some of us are in Calc 3 and differential equations, so the math itself isn't tough. It's just, again, the tedious process. And this is right here. Let's see if I can zoom in right there. That is essentially the formula we need to calculate the electric field for a given vector, for the vector. And if I can pull this up, I know some people last semester who I had friends in physics 131 with did this by hand, and they said, man, this was such a pain, and they knew the calculations, they just, they had to do it by hand. And so I was thinking there's got to be a better way, and using, problem solving and just my previous knowledge from physics 121 and ECE 102, I decided to make a spreadsheet of this. And so essentially what I did is I chose a particle, or not a particle, but I guess you could say a proton or electron, or this point right here, and I guess pretty much just followed the instructions. So if it was, if the charge was 2 above the point or particle, I plugged that into my Excel formula, and again, I just based it off of the formula that I showed above, and don't want to change that. And so again, pretty much if I keep going all the way to the right, again, that calculates the unit vector for that particle on that charge, and I put the amount of charge it is, and it gives me the electric field for that point. And then you want the sum of the electric fields, and this is what I got for the first point. I'll just scroll down through the rest to just show you that I got legitimate answers for all of these. And the reason I know this is right is because I checked my answers by hand, or at least a few of them, so I know that if it works for 2 or 3 of them, I know it should work for all of them. So I'll just scroll through slowly so that maybe you want to compare your answers with mine to see if I have any inaccuracies in my formula. You can let me know, but I feel pretty confident that these are pretty good ballparks and pretty good estimates that Excel was able to calculate. And so what I learned from this was, again, just problem solving, and pretty much what physics, in my opinion, is about. It's not that it's mainly about mathematics, and again, just mathematics. It's not that those aren't important, but that's just a small portion of what physics actually is. I feel like physics and engineering in general is problem solving. Now, you need the tools to actually solve those problems, but if you can't break something down into smaller pieces, into manageable chunks, those mathematical formulas and calculations can't do anything for you, because you don't know what to use yet. You don't know what formula to use. And so, again, after using my previous knowledge of, trying to automate things with Excel and just, other problem solving skills I learned in ECE 102, I was able to relate that experience with this physics experience. So after reading the, I think, 8 pages that David assigned to us, I was able to make that connection where again, the formula is all the same. I don't need to manually calculate the electric fields for each of these particles. If I can just write a general formula for each one of these, then again, I'm set. I already know the the concepts behind it. I read 8 pages of it, and again, all of us pretty much did that too. And it didn't work so much for these calculations, but for these right here, as long as you knew the process and what was going on, it's fine to again just have Excel do the work for you, because at that point, as long as you know what you're doing, I don't want to say busy work, but again, it's just work that you don't need to do. You can rely on computers to do that for you. And again, that just related to my old knowledge of just being able to use Excel to automate a task. And the connections I made with Arduino and coding in general after going through Monday, Wednesday, and Friday using the Arduino, watching other presentations with the Arduino, is just how versatile it is. Again, I think most of the presentations on Friday, at least, the code was pretty straightforward. I don't think there was more than 20 or 30 lines of code at most. Now, personally, Jason's and I had more coding, but then again, our hardware, I guess our circuits part of it was fairly simple itself, so ours was more challenging coding wise, but just building the circuit itself wasn't as difficult as I'm sure as other groups had, or other groups felt it was. So I just again learned how versatile and easy it is to use the Arduino with projects that we're doing. You don't need a huge background in coding. While it helps to have that knowledge of how to debug your programs or go through the mistakes and find them and change them, you don't need a lot of programming experience. You can just kind of plug away and just observe what's going on with electricity and just all of these cool components. And it's again just really cool that even with my again like a few years of taking programming classes, it's pretty easy to do, not just because I have that experience, but just because how easy the Arduino platform is to learn. So I felt that was a connection that I made, that even though I have a lot of programming experience, I felt that anyone could pretty much do it. And I thought that was a cool thing that I learned that. And the next thing this week that we learned was not necessarily learned, but was exposed to the waiting for Superman discussion. And again, this discussion had a huge impact on me, because personally for me, I was homeschooled, and a lot of the reasons why I was homeschooled was because my parents felt that the education system just wasn't as good as they thought it was, and that my mom could teach me better. And just to give you guys some background, my mom was a former school teacher, and she taught in the classroom, so she has that teaching experience. So it wasn't that I was taught by someone who's doesn't know what school is, or hasn't gone to college or anything like that. Not that that is a requirement, but my parents had that background where they had a strong education. They both went to college, so I was able to have that opportunity to learn from them. And I'm not saying my experience was better than other kids at schools, but I felt I was able to get a better education, in my opinion, than going to a school. Now, not everyone feels that way, and I'm not saying that everyone should be homeschooled, because I just know that's not realistic. It just, my specific situation was, I was able to benefit from that. And after watching the video, I was able to just, appreciate all that I had. And the connections that I made were just, again, how, I don't want to say corrupt, but just how weird the school system is, that it's pretty much impossible to fire teachers that have tenure. It's almost, impossible to give good teachers raises, and poor teachers, I guess, pay decreases, or just trying to fire them in general. I know that, we want to protect teachers and we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but we want to give that, benefit of the doubt to actual teachers who are actually teaching their students, not people who are just, going into the classroom to get a paycheck. And I'm not saying that all teachers do this, but we want to reward the good teachers. And after, learning from this documentary, I just, again, just was just not mesmerized, but just shocked about how, I guess, poor our education system is, and how difficult it was to change things. And again, I've heard all the time, with enough time and effort, anything's possible. And it just seems like, with the education system, it's not, so many people have put in time and effort into this, and they just haven't gotten the results. So it's, I guess, I feel like it's just sad that, we can't change the education system just because of outdated rules and regulations that were made sense in the past, but haven't changed to meet the problem, to fix the problems of today. I feel like, the education system is still stuck in the past, where we have rules and regulations that made sense in those times, but now it's 2016. We don't have new laws to accommodate the times, and I feel like that's what's holding the education system back. If we could, again, I guess, modernize our education system in terms of the laws and regulations, if we could reward good teachers and get rid of teachers who just don't want to do their job, I feel like it'd just be such a better place. But again, I know that's easier said than done, because so many other people smarter than I have tried, and I don't want to say have failed, but they haven't accomplished what they hoped to. And while they've made a huge difference, they just can't fix it on their own. So I hope one day, in the future, we can change that. But again, it doesn't seem likely, which is, again, disappointing. And the two neat resources that I liked the most were Luan and Jason's resources. And Luan's resources focused on someone who's 12 years old and who was able to create apps. And what I took away from this was, if someone who's 12 years old can, create apps and learn programming, I feel anything is, possible. And I feel like anyone can learn programming if they put their mindset to it and they truly want to learn. And now, while this kid is, he must be brilliant, learning coding at 12 years old. I mean, I couldn't have done that at that age, but it just, gives me motivation to want to do better and to, teach others how to program too. So I feel like, coding isn't a skill for just, the super brilliant and intelligent. I don't consider myself, smart or, brilliant by any means, but I'm able to program because I put the time and effort into it. And so I feel that's the same for anyone else. If they put the time and effort into it, they can learn anything, including programming. And Jason Zeller's resource talked about artificial intelligence and just how computer programs are able to learn nowadays. We don't need to teach a program how to, in this case, the video talked about how to learn Chinese. If you can create an algorithm that the computer can learn just by experiencing new languages, the computer can learn how to, translate something by itself. As long as you teach it how to learn, it can learn, which is, it sounds like a scary concept that, computers can learn all by themselves. We don't need to program them to do that anymore. It's an awesome and scary thought at the same time. What's going to happen in the future, who knows? But in my opinion, I feel like this is an exciting time to be alive. The best time, in my opinion, is the present right now. Who knows what is going to come next in the next 5-10 years, and I'm excited for that. So to summarize my week, the connections I made with the Arduino is just how versatile it is, and just how much you can do with it, and how simple it is to use. And the next connection I made was, again, with the Waiting for Superman documentary, how, again, just how difficult it is to, change a system that doesn't want change. And while, again, we can still make a difference, one person by themselves can't change the system. A whole group of people need to change the system, and that's a great way for us as, future engineers, physicists, computer scientists, whatever field you're going in for us to change that. Even though we want to go into a difficult field with high-paying jobs, if we can somehow contribute to the education field in some way, shape, or form, I feel like, that's our duty, that's our, obligation to the education system and the education we've received, because we want others to build upon our work eventually too. And, they can't do that if they don't have the education that they need. So I feel, to a certain extent, that we need to provide some kind of, educational resources, even if it's just, helping a student out here or there, just taking time to, help out at a school or volunteer. I feel like that's really important for future engineers, physicists, computer scientists, etc. And the last connection I made was just how relevant programming is in my life. It wraps up my weekly summary, and yeah, thanks for watching.